Good to see you guys. I'm inviting my friend Wade from BiOptimizers on. We're going to talk about fasting and enzymes because, hey, it turns out that when you fast, you can take some things that magically give you more of what you're trying to do during a fast. So I want to bring on an expert on digestion and enzymes and how all that stuff works and share some more knowledge with you. Thank you for joining me here. I'm going to invite him in right now. So if you see me shaking my phone around, you'll know why I'm doing what I do. Let's talk about fasting and enzymes. So in Fast This Way, by the way, if you guys haven't checked out the book, New York Times, hopefully for the third week in a row, I appreciate it if you've purchased a copy. Thank you. It matters a lot. I'm talking about things that you can do during fasting that aren't regularly talked about. And people saying, well, the mice had water during a fast, therefore I'm a mouse, therefore I should only have water. And one of the things, like, guys, you can take some supplements that increase what happens when you're fasting. And one of the most important things is to take enzymes while you're doing it. Michelle got the book. Thank you, Michelle. And what you do with these is normally your body makes enzymes and it uses them to digest food, but it also uses them for a whole bunch of basically processes throughout the body. What an enzyme really does is it takes a chemical reaction that would take a lot of energy and it lets you do it with a very small amount of energy. And this is why basically biochemistry is different than regular chemistry. And when you take systemic enzymes, like the stuff that Wade has formulated for BiOptimizers, you end up taking those protein digestion molecules that your body was going to make and you turn it around and you're like, oh, I can break down scar tissue. I can break down old cells in the body. And it accelerates things. And it's a big change because if you're going to fast, you want to get all the benefits you can get. Keto Couponer says, I have the book and your prebiotic enzymes and I can fast without suffering. So I think it works really well. Maureen, it's Fast This Way. If you go to Amazon, just search for Dave Asprey or Fast This Way. I just had 30,000 people come through the fast training that I'm doing for free. You guys can still sign up, fastthisway.com. It's no charge. It's just there to say thanks. I want to teach this book because if you don't spend any money on breakfast, don't spend any time, don't spend any energy on breakfast, then you have more energy and less hunger that morning as a result. And then you don't get insulin resistance later. You're going to be really, really happy about that. Hey, Hernan is in Argentina. Welcome. What you're going to find is that you can get just tons of benefits from this and it saves money. So then you're like, okay, I was going to get the benefit of this 18-hour fast. What if I get some enzymes instead? And that's really good. Oh, Thomas says it's hands down my best book ever. Thank you. That means a lot. Oh, here we go. Tools for something blog. Can fasting help with allergies? What do you think, Wade?
Well, yeah, I think that inflammatory responses like allergic reactions are oftentimes because of undigested proteins getting into the system and the body starts to attack it and creates a immune response. That's how our immune system technically works. The idea is, though, that one of the reasons I think fasting works, first off, in dealing with that, number one, it allows our microbiome to start repairing any damage from, the assortment of thousands and thousands of chemicals that we all have by living in a technologically advanced world. And the second thing is if we can start sealing up that component, then our natural enzymatic capacity can start repairing. And it's almost like the body has a laundry list. It knows that it needs to start going through the most vital components. But if you never give yourself a break, you don't free up what Dr. Edward Howell, the pioneer of kind of enzyme research, is your enzyme bank account is all used to digestion. And so I believe, and I have significant experimental evidence over the last 20 years or 16 years of doing this, to be specific, adding extra enzymes while you're fasting typically enhances the effects. So in other words, you can take, and as a biohacker, we're all into how do we get more results in less time. I was able to take what would I normally achieve under a 10-day fast, and I built myself up over years to do 10-day water fasts, which are pretty extreme. I would get the equivalent of that within 5 days by adding extra enzymes in. And what that would mean is one of the ways I would track for those hackers that like a little hack is I would always keep my fasting as I went longer till I had a major weight drop on one considerable day. So, you know, usually it's a couple pounds. Your first day, you might do some water weight, or, you know, you burn off whatever you horked out on before you started your fast. But after 3 days, specifically, if you're doing the longer ones, you kind of lose at a very stable rate, or even sometimes your weight will stay the same. And I would continue the fast until I noticed a weight drop of anywhere between 4 and 5 pounds, which is a lot of weight for a guy that's around 200 pounds for me. That would be the signal, like, I'm going too super catabolic, it's time to stop the fast. When I got using Enzymes, particularly when I started adding those to this fast, I would get to that point in 5 days. And I'd be like, okay, I kind of get all the benefits, and then I would start seeing the weight drop significant, and I'm like, okay, I'm at the end of the fast. And one of the other things I noticed is that detoxification symptoms that happen for people who are new to fasting tend to be mitigated significantly. And that's the ability for the enzymes to go into the blood and clear out many of these inflammatory products that might be released from your fat cells that can oftentimes happen as well as or from the breakdown as the autophagy starts to happen as you eat up these kind of bad cells. We can't say any C words or anything that might be, but mutated cells that your body's going to feed on, which is really beneficial. And so proteolytic enzymes in particular are very helpful in accelerating that process.
There are people asking about neuroplasticity in fasting, which is really interesting because we know if you can raise something called BDNF, which has been a core part of Bulletproof since the very first book, this is brain-derived nootropic factor. It lets you make more brain cells as if you were young. And exercise raises BDNF, and fasting raises BDNF, and ketones raise BDNF, and coffee, or at least some extracts of coffee, can do it. Certain kinds of mushrooms, if they're extracted the right way, usually with heat and alcohol, can do this. And even some pharmaceuticals that they're using can, for Alzheimer's, can increase these. So one of the things to do if you want a young brain is, yes, you should do intermittent fasting. It's one of the reasons that it's in the book. And intermittent fasting has been a part of the Bulletproof diet since 2011. It's part of my anti-aging work, Superhuman. And it's one of the things, it costs nothing. And if you don't spend money on breakfast, maybe you take a little bit of that and you spend it on enzymes or on some other supplement or something that makes your fasts more effective. And that's why I wanted Wade to come on here, because Wade sent out several thousand bottles of their enzymes to people who bought the book who came in early. And some of the people in the comment that are saying, I take them, I feel a difference. I certainly do. And so if your body, when you eat, is better at breaking down food, you'll get more out of the food, which is why you take them with food. And if you take them without food, your body gets more out of itself, which is the whole thing. Oh, and happy birthday, Laura. I saw you're on there having a birthday today. True Blue says enzymes and brain octane oil, which is super cool. Let's see, questions about enzymes and cancer. Have you seen any evidence on enzymes and cancer, any studies? I'm unaware of any, but there probably are some.
Well, I actually am an advisor to the American Anti-Cancer Institute, and so I've been able to provide some suggestions for people who are either undergoing treatment or have gone through treatment, and then there's a whole lot of information in regards to the use of proteolytic enzymes inside of that. Now, I want to be clear about, I'm not making any medical claims or all that sort of legal jargon, that I'm not suggesting people do this, but if you really want to dive into it, I would suggest reading the complete works of Dr. Gonzalez, who went off to prove that these people using these crazy proteolytic enzyme formulations in conjunction with fasting in order to accelerate recovery from cancer, well, he says prove it. And after doing 12,000 cases, he actually came to the conclusion that this was a really great choice. So I would suggest for anybody in that situation to go check that information out and make your own choices around that. But I do believe that I think it can only assist and help with most types of those conditions. But again, check with your physician, of course, but I'm a big believer in it.
There is really good evidence that when your body is breaking down any foreign bodies, whether you're healing from an infection you're healing from a surgery, or say you've done something to get rid of a tumor, the debris that's left over causes inflammation. And when you take systemic enzymes on an empty stomach, you have more enzyme capacity to break that stuff down, so you're going to have less inflammation. And there's a question here about trying to gain weight when you're fasting. And you know what? There are a sizable number of people who just don't gain weight and they're too thin. They don't like it. My wife was one of those when I met her. She's, people are saying, what do you mean? How can that be? Well, if you don't have enough fat on your butt that it hurts to sit down and you're cold all the time, it's not a good place to be. And there's guys in the same situation. But if you look at what's going on inside, quite often you have very high visceral fat. That's the most dangerous fat packed around your organs. So people are like, oh, you look so thin, but the fat's in the wrong place. And if you want to gain weight and maybe put fat where it should be, certainly you need to get rid of the visceral thing. Intermittent fasting will help you with that dramatically, get rid of liver fat and visceral fat. There's plenty of studies about that. But when you're eating, take enzymes with the food. It's probably more important than taking them on an empty stomach to gain weight, because if you can properly break down, say, a steak or whatever carbs you're eating, your body can use those components. Otherwise, a substantial portion of what you're eating doesn't go through. And VM Photography is asking about the name of the book. It's called Fast This Way. And it's very different. The normal fasting book goes like this. Don't eat for a while, step 1. Step 2, it's good for you. And then there's a bunch of studies. Yes, we all know it's good for you, but no one does it because it feels like it's going to be painful. And it is painful if you weigh 300 pounds like the way I used to. I could not have done a water fast the first day. I would have felt really, really unwell and been hangry and all. So there's hacks in the book that let you not feel hunger during a fast. You have more energy. The fasting challenge with me. By the way, if you go to fastway.com, you can still sign up for the fasting challenge and do it right now. And I will teach you for 2 weeks what's in the book. And I love it if you buy the book. You'll probably buy the book if you do the challenge. But even if you don't, do the challenge. And I'll send you a video every day telling you, here's what to do today, here's what to do tomorrow, and all that. And it's a really meaningful upgrade in your morning. I promise you that you'll have more focus and more attention. And then you say, okay, I've got all this like time when my body is now working on itself instead of working on whatever I ate. And then that's when you take digestive enzymes. And the evidence behind that for like plastic surgeons taking proteolytic enzymes so you get less scarring is good. It actually can break up adhesive scar tissue throughout your body, even old stuff, which is really cool. And here's someone says their lightheadedness went away when they fasted, which is really cool. And Mama G says fasting challenge was so helpful. And Tina just got my book. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You guys have no idea how exciting it is as an author when people read my book. It makes me happy. Hernan says, what about bulletproof coffee or fasting? So the Bulletproof Diet was the first major book in the last 10 years that said intermittent fasting is the way to do it. And I said, you can safely have bulletproof coffee during a fast, and here's why. And there's more information now that says that's a valid fast. When you fast, you want to keep your insulin levels constant or low, but you don't want to spike insulin. Carbs and to a certain extent protein do that. You want to keep your mTOR low so that you maintain a state called autophagy, which is why you can put a little bit of butter, which changes water chemistry, and some MCT oil, which changes the energy in your body and gets your cells used to burning fat. And when you do that, you feel so much better while you fast. It's a big deal. And here's a question from Too Old for This Shit blog. Nice name. Does lightheadedness go away? If you're getting lightheaded during a fast, it could be that you're insulin resistant and your body's cutting over. Usually MCT oil helps a lot. You may also be out of electrolytes. A pinch of sea salt magically can do crazy things like that. And here's someone saying they didn't get their pre-order enzymes. So hit me up on the DMs or actually reach out on the Fastest Way customer support. We'll make sure we got that. Intermittent fasting and iron deficiency. If you have an iron deficiency, you actually should get a blood test for your copper levels as well. And then oftentimes supplementing copper will help to fix that. And taking vitamin C whenever you eat red meat is going to help you absorb your iron more. So you can still intermittent fast, just make sure you eat enough iron when you eat. There is plenty of evidence showing us that eating all the time is very bad for us, and we didn't used to do it. Every time you eat, you get a huge wave of basically immune molecules that go in and digest the food. It creates basically a small wave of inflammation in your body, which is why constant snacking is like inflammation, inflammation, inflammation. So I ate one time today. I ate at 2 o'clock today. And I had a lot of pastured pork from my own farm, which was really good. A moderate amount of carbs from, I'm trying Himalayan buckwheat right now. and then a ton of butter and some MCT oil. And that was what I had for lunch. And that's all I'm going to have. And I'm not going to be hungry at dinner time. I won't want to eat. And I'll eat again tomorrow, probably about the same time. I might have a bulletproof coffee tomorrow morning. I might have a black coffee, depending on what I feel like. But I'm not hungry. I am not thinking about food. I'm not worried about food. I don't feel like I'm going without. I'm just like, I'm full. I'm happy. My brain is working. Everything is working. And there's less dishes. Like it's not a bad world to do it like this. So when you realize, wait a minute, you went from, oh my God, I'd be starving and focusing on donuts and tacos and worrying, to I actually was just calmer and happier and more focused, and I never felt hungry. That's why this was worth writing a book about, because doing that is very different than just drink water for 24 hours. That is going down the path of a spiritual fast. We're saying, okay, I'm going to actually embrace suffering. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to rest. I'm going to reflect. My thought for you guys, you're busy. You probably have, kids hanging off each arm, and you're trying to focus on work, and you're trying to do all this stuff, and it's in the middle of the pandemic, and there's enough stress. Trying to use fasting with water only is a harder fast, and you don't need harder. It's kind of like saying, okay, I'm already overtrained. I'm going to go to the gym and lift heavy every single day. It's not necessary. You can do a shorter fast. You can do an assisted fast with the hacks that are in the book, and you feel better, and it makes you a nicer person. Because if you're hypoglycemic while you're fasting, which is one of my favorite words, you're just not going to keep doing it. And I want you to be able to do this for decades the way I have. By the way, I'm about to bring someone on who's been intermittent fasting for 59 years. And she's 81, and you would never know it. And it's going to be a really cool interview for you guys. But this is what works. When you do these anti-aging things over time, including proteolytic enzymes, I have taken various proteolytic enzymes, including the ones that Wade makes, for 20-something years now. When I first heard about these, this was long before BiOptimizers was existing. And there's such good evidence, it's just not known, and it works even better during a fast.
Okay, I have one thing too I wanted to add related to the BDNF, because I'm a big fan of going to 40 years of Zen. My whole executive team goes, and we typically go twice a year. And so I did an experiment this year, and that is post-Zen. My first time, I didn't put any calorie restrictions. And then post-Zen, the second time, actually, I should say in 2020, I went twice in 2020.
By the way, let me break in for 1 second there. 40 Years of Zen is my 5-day intense brain upgrade neuroscience program in Seattle. So it's a really big brain upgrade, just so people know what we're talking about. Keep going.
Yes. Yeah. And the second time I went, and I spent alternate day fasting. In other words, your instructor said that there was a big advantage if you added fasting for the reasons for cognitive improvements. And what I would say, the integration phase from the upgrades that happened to me when I was at 40 Years of Zen happened much faster the second time around when I did fasting, which almost seems counterintuitive to what
you did. Fasting after the program or during the program?
I did it after.
And that's a good plan.
So the first time I didn't afterwards. I just went back to my regular diet. The second time I said, I'm going to do alternate day fasting. And it was remarkable. And I felt I got more gains out of the program, and the program is extraordinary. So thank you for that. And I can't wait to go back again this year.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's great. So I think a lot of people, particularly your audience, I think that's really performance oriented, will be surprised about how fasting almost resets it feels like it resets everything, and then you get more out of the hacks that you're doing after. At least that's been my experience, and one of the reasons I continue to do it. And I will say one other piece, because yesterday, of course, I did the Super Bowl party, and I'm like, okay, well, we definitely went over my caloric reasonability by a considerable margin. So one of the hacks that I do is I get up in the morning and I go down to Bulletproof, and I do a Bulletproof coffee, and I do a fat water, and I consume those two things, and then I don't eat all day long. And when I come off a high calorie day, I really find that using the Bulletproof stack, as I like to call it, really helps stabilize the blood sugar. If I was to go and try to go straight fasting, I'm going to crash by noon and not make it. And here it is, 4:30. I feel fine. Everything was great. It's a busy day on Mondays, and just knocked everything out with no problem. So those hacks are great. on top of enzymes, you can accelerate things. But those things that you talk about in your book, I think these little tiny components can make all the difference between someone who says they can't possibly go a few hours without eating to someone that can go 2-3 days and not even worry about it if they so desire. And it's a very empowering feeling to have that. So I'm grateful that you did the book.
You pointed out something really cool. By the way, guys, if you're just joining, Fast This Way is the book we're talking about. It's on the New York Times list and just released it. And thank you for reading it. All the comments from people reading it. The question from You Are Limitless. Early morning fasted workouts. And Wade, I know you've got a lot of experience as a bodybuilder and whatnot. I generally recommend working out the end of a fast. In fact, there's a chapter in Fast This Way about exercise and fasting. Ideally, you use a fast to suppress mTOR, use coffee to suppress mTOR, and use exercise to suppress mTOR, and then you eat some protein and the mTOR spikes. mTOR is what makes you put on muscles. And you don't want it to be chronically elevated because that's what grows cancer if it's up all the time. That's why one of the reasons fasting is so good for you. But You Are Limitless is saying, can you talk about working out and then staying fasted for a while because they work out early in the morning? What are your thoughts as a guy who has more experience than the average bear about putting on muscle?
I've done a lot of experiments in this particular area. And what I can say is this. For a general rule, I find slow, steady cardio on a fast is like that, which would be maybe just walking on the beach.
Go for a walk, right?
Exactly. Nice and slow, riding a bike. So sometimes what I do is at my desk, I have one of those bikes that you can just put under your standing desk, and I'll bike for a couple hours just at a very low intensity, or go for a walk and do my calls along the beach here in California, or when I go up in the mountains, like after the 40 years of Zen and that integration. I have done experiments where I've done what I would call medium intensity weight training. That's only for people if you're very sophisticated, you really have been fat adapted so that you don't have the blood sugar crash. That's more of an advanced trick. The one thing I would say absolutely avoid is HIIT training. So I've done experiments on HIIT training in a fasted state. That is a train wreck.
Unless you eat right afterwards, right? You can HIIT train in a fasted state and then eat. But if you do a HIIT in the morning and then fast for a while, it's going to raise your cortisol for 48 hours, right?
Yeah. The other thing is too, I find I've tracked it in my appetite, even if I eat after a HIIT training, goes up in a total. So I'm back to fighting. I want to eat more than I probably should, and I usually defer to the latter part. I eat more than I should, and so oftentimes I negate the benefits I just got from the last day or 2 days or whatever that I'm doing. So slow, steady state cardio is usually good. If you are going to do a workout, I do like that idea where you do a workout to kind of break the fast, and then you go back to your regular dietary choice. That's also a win, and the one I tend to use the most.
Nice. Baby Loves to Dance says, what about butter affecting the heart? If it's grass-fed butter, your body is 50% saturated fat, and there is not evidence that butter affects the heart. In the parts of India that eat 19 times more butter than other parts, they have something like 28 times less heart disease. So the idea that butter affects the heart was basically 1970s margarine propaganda. Butter is not bad for you, especially grass-fed butter. Robert says that he did OMAD. This is one meal a day, like I just described, 3 times this week for the first time, and it felt great. One of the other things that's in Fast This Way that I really want you guys to understand is the fasting trap. And it's the same as the keto trap. A lot of people say, I'm going to go keto. I feel so good. I'm never going to eat a carb again. And then usually for women in about 6 weeks, like, my sleep isn't very good. I'm probably not keto enough. And then like, oh, now my cycle's all screwed up. Maybe I need to be even more keto because I know keto makes me feel good. And then their hair starts to fall out, and eventually, like, this isn't working. And it's because we have a bias. If something works, more must be better. And fasting isn't like that. In fact, some of fast, it has tons of benefits. In fact, if you have weight to lose, you're in perimenopause, that might be the right amount for you. And there's nothing inherently better about doing 18 hours versus 16 hours. But what you want to do is try those things, and you're good to go. So, don't be rigid about it. And you can say, I didn't sleep well last night. I'm doing a shorter fast, and it's okay. And 50 and Bless says, but I want coffee every morning. I'm an addict. Well, you can have coffee during a fast. It works. Just don't put sugar in it. And don't breathe whatever I just breathed. By the way, have you guys changed your ringtone to be a coughing sound? That's one of my favorite things to do. Mama G just did the 2-week fasting challenge. By the way, guys, it's free. You want 2 weeks of training from me about fasting? FastThisWay.com, sign up, and I'll get you in there. Victoria, the book is called Fast This Way. But Mama G says, not so hungry at dinner after my 2-week fasting challenge. What you find after you've done even a brief amount of fasting like that is that you're just not as hungry as you thought you were. And what happens is your body thinks it needs food all the time because that's what it's used to. And once it learns, oh, actually, you fast a little bit, I just got rid of my really weak mitochondria and I replaced them via a process called mitophagy with younger, stronger mitochondria. Now your hunger levels go down because you're better at turning air and food into electrons. Since you're better at it, you actually want less food. And it's really, liberating is the right word for it. It's like, wow, I can't believe this. So, and Noah says, can I do a blog post or video or segment about some of the best carbs I implement? If you go to fastthisway.com, there's something called the Bulletproof Diet and Fasting Roadmap for 2021. I just released it, and it's all the nutritional recommendations that are in the book. And they're on a one-page infographic you can put on your fridge for free. But you'll want to read the book, I'm sure. All right, we have like 2 more minutes, and then I got to jump on my next call, Wade. Tell me a little bit more about women and enzymes. Do you know anything about endometriosis? Anything about good times to take it? Is there anything that women should know about enzymes with or without fasting?
Yeah. So what I can say is if one has a tendency for a lot of bleeding for any reason, or are on blood thinners as well, you want to check with your doctor before you use Enzymes. And the reason being is it does seem to have a thinning effect on the blood for a lot of people. In other words, if you look under a microscopy and you'll see all those kind of, especially after a protein meal, you'll see all this kind of like coagulation inside your blood. And then when you take Enzymes, you'll see that the Enzymes get into the blood and start breaking everything. That's really interesting to I've actually done these experiments. It's really, really fun. So people who are prone to bleeding, though, I would be very cautious about what they use or how they use Enzymes in that area. These are very potent enzymes, and it's not like what people might have experienced across the counter or on the store shelf. When you try it, you'll see a difference. I think there's a 15% discount if they, in the next 24 hours where this live goes on, so they can jump on that and grab it.
Do you have a code? I don't know. We didn't arrange anything. I just wanted to share some knowledge.
Yeah, I think they'll drop the link in here. They'll drop the link on here. I think it's
nice.
IG Live 15. And if they go there, we always put a guarantee behind it too. So if for some reason it didn't work for you, it was too much or something like that, we just give you your money back and run another experiment. That's what I say.
Loving it. So guys, I hope this was useful. I'm seeing another comment. Mama G says I should do a live interview Q&A for people who did the fasting challenge. There are 3 video Q&As already in there. So when you guys go to Fast This Way, you get 3 one-hour interviews like this and daily videos where I teach you the book. So I realized as an author, it's been thousands of hours writing a book, but I never really put together the course for the book. So this is just a gift. Like I just sign up, and there's thousands, and actually 30,000 people have signed up. So there's a big community. You get a Facebook group. I answer questions in there and all that kind of stuff. FastThisWay.com, and go to BiOptimizers, which is Wade's company. He just gave you the code IG15, was it? Or IG Live 15?
Yes, I believe that's it.
All right. And if you guys have never tried digestive enzymes, BiOptimizers makes really good ones. I use them. You take them with food, your body makes better use of the food. And if you take them during a fast, your body breaks itself down better in ways that it needs to. And on that note, my friends, thank you for listening. I hope you learned some cool stuff in here. We covered a lot of good questions. Wade, thanks for being a pioneer in enzymes and for sharing your bodybuilding history on those questions as well. That was really cool. See you guys on here again soon. Bye.
There, Dave.